Hi, everybody. This is Amy, and I'll have her introduce herself in just a second here. But we are just going to go live here a few minutes early because a few people are in the waiting room, and we will get kicked off here in just a second. As always, we've got our coffee. I was telling Amy we call these our coffee chat sessions. So it's just casual.
Can't function without coffee.
Q&A. So this is no pressure. If anyone's here and is want you to ask a question, but maybe feels silly, don't. This is supposed to be a laid back, casual environment for everybody. We want everyone to feel comfortable.
I think I'm easy to talk to.
Yeah, no, you definitely are. It's
Good.
We don't typically invite people on these who are not. So
Good.
That's funny.
Am I able to see like who is on here, or is it just?
I think that it's only visible
just presenters.
to me, but yeah,
that's fine.
You should be able to see like if people like drop stuff in the chat.
Okay. Oh, I have that up. So.
Okay, cool. And if not, that's okay. It's if anyone's feeling shy, that's fine. We have questions that people submitted ahead of time and stuff too, so no big deal. Okay.
Sounds good.
Well, hold on here just a second.
Just hang out.
Yeah. And just for anybody who has this question, the recording will be sent after to anybody who registered as well. And then we'll be sharing this out as like a blog post presentation too, just so that anyone can have access because we want as many people to get this info as possible. Okay. Awesome. Well, it's 9, so let's go ahead and kick off. Hi, as always, I'm Zoe, founder of Perfectly Planned Content, and today I have Amy here with us, who is the founder of Amplify by Design. Amy, do you want to introduce yourself? Just tell us a little bit about your firm.
Sure. Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm Amy Funahashi. I am a web and graphic designer. My business is called Amplify by Design because we focus on working with small business owners to help design amplify their marketing. So not just something that looks good, but creating something effective is what we really focus on. I've been in business for about 3 years. And I was freelancing for many years before that. So it's been a bit of a journey, but it's great to be doing it full time. And I really love helping people kind of get things done for their business. Really enjoy that part. So that's why I do it.
Awesome. And it's been a pleasure getting to know you here the last few months. We worked with Amy on several of our projects, on client projects. I know she's been featured in a few of our newsletters, and we're always just looking for awesome designers to feature. And so it's been awesome getting to know her, and we're super excited to have her here today. So today's session is going to be very laid back. I doubt we'll take the full hour for anybody who's like watching the clock or anything. So, don't feel stressed out about that. I just have a couple of questions, and we're going to kind of just explore what it means to work with a graphic designer in general, especially as a small business owner, what you should look for, how to interact with them or give feedback in an effective way. Because ultimately, I think, Amy, you would agree, like anytime you work with an outsourced provider, you want to maximize that relationship. And I find a lot of people have questions, both about working with just marketers and just general, working with bigger firms that offer design and other stuff, working with specialist designers. And they're not really sure where to go. And I know I've fallen into that camp as well, where, when you're first getting started, you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. You don't know who to work with. You just kind of go with referrals. And you might not be finding the person who's the best fit for your needs. So, Amy, with that kind of being said, why don't you tell us just a little bit about the type of design your firm does, how you got started, and what sort of projects you work on now with clients?
Sure. So what you said, I think it does ring a bell with everybody because there's so many different kinds of like graphic design studios out there. There's freelancers, there's people who do this full time. There's, large agency, medium and large agencies, right? And what they charge and how they work are all pretty unique. I've seen a huge range of them, so I think that makes it difficult to know what to expect when you're working. So, so we'll talk about this more, but it's kind of important to make sure you ask the questions first to find out what kind of firm they are and what they do, and see if it fits with your needs, because what you need and what another business needs could be totally different. So, just to make it hard, it's kind of a puzzle, but I think the goal would be finding someone that you get along well with, communicate well with, have a good workflow with, and can stick with for a long term.
Mhm,
So that's generally my goal when I try to work with clients. I like to find clients I can work with long term
mhm,
because
mhm,
it's not just about making something and like, hey, here you go, like good luck.
mhm,
You want
mhm,
somebody to be able to evolve with you and to kind of, make the marketing a little bit more cohesive so
mhm.
it's kind of, sticks together as one body of work rather than just random pieces when
Yeah.
you're representing your company. And so, did you want me to talk about how I
Yeah,
got
no, no,
started?
you're totally good. No, that makes sense. So
Yeah,
why don't you talk about, like, the sort of projects that you tackle with clients? So are you
sure.
and, like, I kinda know what you do, but, like, are you doing a lot of web design work? Are you doing PDF work? What's sort of your bread and butter?
Sure. So I'm a little bit unique in that I do both.
Mhm,
Many people will focus either on the graphic part, which is mostly like the Adobe suite
mhm,
kind of stuff with the Illustrator and the Photoshop. And
mhm,
then other people will focus on web things like websites,
mhm,
newsletters. So I'm kind of unique in that I can handle both. I kind of like being that one-stop shop for
mhm,
the client because no one really wants to like talk to one person for their logo and then have to go find
mhm,
somebody else for their website and then somebody else
mhm,
to print stuff, right? So, but um, yeah, so I do a little bit of everything.
mhm.
Lately, the work has been web heavy a little bit.
Okay.
I think mostly because of the pandemic. People are really
Mhm.
focused on the web part now because it's more
Yeah.
heavily used. They
No,
got to look
absolutely. We see
good.
that the same way. We're
Yeah.
running into more and more people who not just blog posts that they're looking for, but they wanna figure out, "How can I do video? Like, how can I get more and more digital?" So it makes sense
Hmm.
that you would lean that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and they tend to go hand in hand though because what happens is usually, someone will make a logo and then they'll realize, "Oh, I do need a website and a
Mhm.
brochure." And then some other need they want to do a social media campaign
Yep.
or, so
Mhm.
things are always happening which is hopefully, right? You want to keep making new
Yeah.
stuff
Mhm.
and marketing yourself. So
Mhm.
yeah, they kind of go hand in hand, but lately the web I think has been really important.
Okay, awesome. No, that's super exciting and good to know too. Like you said, it's I think for small business owners, finding a firm that can be a one-stop shop, especially when they're a small team or they just want to have one point of contact, that can be really helpful. Whether that's someone like yourself, Amy, who I know right now it's just you, correct? So you are the kind of the sole designer.
Yes.
Okay, and so and, like,
Yes,
even if
it
that were to change
is.
in the future, like, having, like, a smaller agency where you're not kind of just getting, like, caught up in the crowd of, like, all of their clients or they're used to working with really big companies, sometimes I feel like that makes a difference, and because you do have the ability to say, "Okay, like, let's do web, let's do PDF work, I can go ahead and do this ad design for you," whereas some larger firms might be a little bit more, just like rule oriented around what they can do even though they provide a
Mhm,
great service they just aren't always a great fit for like our clients are usually small to medium sized financial advisor firms too so
mhm.
it's sometimes I find those bigger design agencies they don't quite match up what they're
Little
looking for.
restricting.
Mhm,
Yeah. I mean, small businesses are so unique. Like, what you
mhm,
need, especially if you're a solo,
mhm.
entrepreneur, like, you might be well versed in web stuff, but not be able to
Yeah.
make a
Mhm,
logo or, something like that. Like,
mhm.
it's very unique for everybody, so it's nice to have that flexibility, I think.
Yeah, no, 100%. I totally agree with you. Well, I know you touched on this a little bit, but why don't we talk a little bit just about like your process and why you think like being a process oriented designer or firm or working with one is really important.
Sure. So, how I work, I always like to start with research, and
Mhm,
not everyone does this, but you take the time to
mhm,
get to know the client, what the
mhm,
exact goals are. Have specific targets that you're going
mhm,
for. Know what they did in the past. Look at other work in the industry to see
mhm,
what's going on in there, what's effective,
mhm,
what's not, and even other industries. Seeing what just the trend is, seeing what kind of functions a
mhm,
website might have, or just making sure you look around and get that kind of objective starting point
mhm,
is important, I think. So I always start with research. And
mhm.
then from there, you go into like the development. Or I'm sorry, wait, I'm skipping something. So from
That's okay.
there, you'll you'll collect the assets.
Mhm,
So having the photograph or the copy and having all
mhm,
that in order before you kind of start putting the piece. You got to have the puzzle pieces before you start putting them together, right? So,
mhm, mhm,
so essentially, you just collect all the stuff, make sure that that's looking good, and then you can go into the development phase where we start sketching or
yeah,
start putting the pieces together. And then from there it's just kind of refinement. You'll look at it together, evaluate, see what
mhm.
else it needs. Maybe you'll move stuff around or take some stuff out. add something else
Okay.
back in, and then yeah, and then just tweak until you have that final product. But I think the key point there is really having the research piece.
Mhm.
Not a lot of people do that, especially if you go
Mm.
to like Fiverr or something like that. Like
Mhm.
those people will just draw something and throw it at you.
Yep.
And sometimes that works,
Mhm.
but I think having the discovery session beforehand is important.
Agreed, and I think we had kinda touched on this just, like, in our, previous conversations, but being able to know the difference, right, of, like, when it's important to work with someone who maybe has that, like, discovery process or something like that in place versus going to Fiverr for, like, a quick $15 project, and, like, sometimes I think you had said something just resonated with me, which is, like, if you were doing something like a logo that's going to impact your brand long term or web design or a brochure you're gonna use it again and again for years, like that is probably the time to look for someone with more of that discovery process who's more in depth and more tied to your firm and invested in your wins, right, so to speak,
Exactly.
versus like I need to send this postcard out one time to say happy holidays, like a little bit different, right? So like, and you could still go to someone like you for that, but
Mhm.
it's not necessarily going to like make or break your firm if you were to like go the $15 quick fix route.
Yeah,
So
there's
I
just
think
a
it's time to know
range.
your age.
Yeah,
Mhm,
there's a range, and it's hard to kind of navigate that sometimes, but,
mhm.
once you start kind of,
Yeah.
doing it, I think it makes sense, and I
Mhm.
I would always just lean towards recommending working with somebody,
Yes.
but
No,
yeah.
I'm with you 100%, and we say the same thing, obviously. So, like, we provide, like, custom content services, and we have people who come to us all the time and are like, "Well, what if I wanna use, like, canned content?" And we always say the same thing, "Hey, there is a place for that in your business. If you are just
Mhm,
getting started, if you don't feel like you have time to, like, edit custom pieces or you don't have it in the budget, there's, like, a place for
mhm,
canned content or something that's sort of the next level down if custom is, like, the top level."
mhm.
And so just kind of knowing like where your business is at and what you're looking for and what the goals are, I think
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah, there's definitely the range, so it
Yep.
depends is the answer.
Yeah, exactly. That's always the answer, right? Okay, so I've kind of got the other questions here that we had talked about and that some people submitted ahead of time.
Sure.
So I think something else that we had kind of said was before you work with a designer,
Mhm.
like what questions do you recommend people ask? Or like what do you wish people asked you that you feel like maybe they don't or they're not thinking about?
Sure. So there's definitely a few pieces that are important to know going in. Like I mentioned, each studio
Hmm.
is so different. So I think it's important to kind of clarify right at the beginning what they
Hmm.
offer and what you're getting. So like one important piece would be like ownership. So technically, legally, I believe I'm not a lawyer, but whoever creates the work owns the work unless it's specifically stated otherwise.
Hmm.
So if someone makes you a logo and you never have a contract that says that ownership is transferred to you, you may not own your own logo. It's kind of
Mhm,
crazy, but so ownership is an important piece to discuss
mhm,
beforehand. I also mentioned the process, so make sure you understand like what
mhm,
exactly they're gonna do. Like, are they gonna, do the brand dive
mhm,
and understand what you really want, or are they just gonna draw you some stuff and give it to you? Also, like what's gonna happen afterwards, especially with web work in particular. There's a lot of maintenance and security and things like that that go on
mhm,
after, a launch. So you
mhm,
kind of want to find out, how's the handoff going to be and who's going to be managing that, what's going to happen after.
mhm,
And then one last piece I would also say is important is to find out who's doing the work. So there's a lot of larger firms that are really shiny and fancy and charge a lot of
mhm,
money, and they, I'm sure, are great too.
mhm,
But you got to ask who's doing the work because often there's just junior designers and they're doing the
mhm,
work, and you're kind of paying for this big shiny label when someone
mhm.
who's freelance who might have the same level of skill could also be doing the work. So it's
Yep.
just important to know, but if someone super experienced is doing your work, then, maybe it is worth paying more. So just
Mhm.
finding out who's doing the work, what's being done, and being specific about it, I think is important.
Yeah, no, I would agree, and I think too, something we run into, like, with larger marketing firms is similar, right? Like, just knowing who your point person is. So, like, on the
Mhm.
team, am I talking to the person who's actually doing the design? Am
Right.
I not? I think it can work both ways. Like, I'll use our firm as an example. We do writing, it's a little bit different. But like we have a whole team of writers, and they generally speaking are not in contact with our clients. Like that usually is either like Lauren or myself or Danelle, who are like the core team members. And then we
Mhm.
kind of have like the big picture, which is helpful because then the client knows when we're talking to them, like we know their background, we know the context, we know what's going on. But for writers, then if they were to like, if a person wanted to talk directly to the writer, we might not be a fit, but we have benefits that kind of go with, okay, but you're talking to someone who knows your firm really well and is like your direct point of contact. What I find sometimes with larger firms is there's like 10 different points of contact that you could potentially both design and just marketing in general. And it's confusing for business owners. I've been in the position where I've worked with big firms on different stuff, but where I could contact, X, Y, or Z about different questions. And like, I'm not really sure where to go. So I
Yeah.
think that's important to clarify as well.
It can get super hairy, especially when you
Mhm.
have, like, 8 people on the email and you're like, "Well, do I send it to everybody or do I send
Mhm.
it to the 3 people that I talked to in the beginning?" Or,
Yes,
so
exactly.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then also with, like, the editing, I think it's nice to have the 2 main points of contact, so then it's
Mhm.
shared, and then they can share with their team, get the feedback, and bring it
Yes.
back to you
Mhm.
rather than getting 8 different points of feedback and trying to
Mhm.
and that might contradict each other and trying to figure it out. So
Yeah.
having that
Mhm.
kind of system a little bit in place, I think is helpful.
No, I agree, and that kind of brings us to, like, talking about, like, how can a design client give feedback in an effective way? And
Mm,
I think what you're bringing up is something that we run into a lot, because and I do this too, like, business owners don't know what they don't know, right? And so, like, you want as many eyeballs on a project as possible, especially with something as important as, like, a logo, a website, like, something that's gonna impact the whole firm. But it can
mhm,
be confusing both for a designer, a marketer, any outsourced solution to have, like, 20 pieces of feedback to try and incorporate and you're not sure which one to go with and what to navigate. And so you're kind of saying like have one point person on your team, like the client's team, not the designer's team, who can provide
mhm.
that feedback. Is that correct?
Who can kind of, like, group it all together. Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
if
kind
there's
of like
multiple
be the
opinions
project
being thrown
manager.
around.
Mhm,
Mhm. I think it's helpful just because, if there's too many points of contact, it's hard to know who to listen more above the others almost,
mhm,
like,
mhm.
if
Yeah,
someone's
like
like,
who's
"I want
actually
it
making the
blue."
call.
Yeah, and then the other
Mhm,
person's like, "I want it red." Like, what do I do? You know what I mean?
mhm, mhm.
I think it's just helpful. Although so then it would be helpful though for the point person to say, "Oh, we had one person that wanted it red and one person that wanted it blue." I could weigh it in my head versus like, I don't know, just getting 2 direct orders and then be like, "I don't know what to do."
Yeah,
So
like which one would you guys prefer? Yeah. So like I think
yeah.
like having a project manager on the client side to sort of say, we're moving this ball down the court. Like we're gonna keep trying to figure this out together. Our whole team is looking at this, but like I'm kind of the one you're talking to. And they can be
Mhm,
the one who does check-ins and stuff. We find that works best for us too. So like
mhm,
with working with advisors and small firms, sometimes we work with firms with like 10 plus employees, but really we only work with two of them, like on the
mhm,
big
right.
firm team, because that's who we're talking to. So they're the ones in charge of approvals and whatnot. And to your point, like it can be confusing if someone else comes in and says, "Well, I wasn't on that meeting invite," and I'm like, "Oh, geez, I don't even know. Like, I've never talked to you before. Like, I have no idea who you are." And so I think it's important to be clear about like who's on the team as well, so that like you would know our
Right,
team of
mhm,
20 is going to be looking at this, so you know, okay, there's a lot of feedback coming through this one project manager that I can kind of help decipher. And
mhm.
I think that's helpful as well.
Yeah, I mean, that being said, it's
Mhm.
it's 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 good. I think all feedback is welcome.
I agree.
Just
Mhm,
from my perspective, I always
mhm,
say be brutally honest because
mhm.
it's not my feelings, like, I'm making something
Yes.
that I'm
Mhm,
hoping is effective. So,
mhm,
um, and so I always think all feedback is good. I welcome it all the time. Like, I
mhm,
always say my door is open, just because it makes it better. It usually
mhm,
does. And even for small details, like, I have a range of clients from like, "Oh, that looks good," done to like, "Oh, can you add 5 millimeters of space on that one
mhm,
thing?" And,
mhm,
but I think that's fine because ultimately it does make it better. So,
mhm.
and that's what we're all, here about, like to create something that's gonna
Yeah.
work well, right? So,
Mhm,
so yeah, that being said, I think feedback's super important. I think some people are shy about like saying
Yes.
something
Mhm.
negative, which I get, it's tough to be like, I hate it. But
Mhm.
I think it's really important to voice that. If you hate it, like you should tell them because it's
Yes,
not gonna
otherwise
get
it's just
better.
paying for something that you don't love.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely have that. I would say most of our clients are shy about feedback, and I think
Yeah.
it's, like, a fear, like you said, of hurting feelings, and I
Yeah.
always wanna be like, it's not like, yes, I created this, but I don't have, like, a creator's attachment to the work that I'm making for you because I want
Mhm.
it to be for you and to empower you and your firm.
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
it's like, I
That's
want
a
it
good
to be
way.
what you want, and if it's not, we need to, like, figure out a way to adjust that and make it work for everybody.
Yeah. So I would just say don't be afraid to hurt
Mhm.
any feelings. Most of us in this line of work, like we know it's part of it, the thing.
Yep.
So I'd say, yeah, you gotta have a thick skin or else you wouldn't be here. So
Yes. No, 100%. I'm totally with you there.
yeah.
Okay, so that kind of talks about like feedback a little bit, how to organize like point person on your team when working with a designer, which I think is a question I get a lot. It's like, how should we submit feedback or like how can we communicate with someone? And I think that's good. How about we kind of talked a little bit about questions to ask up front, which was a question somebody else had. You had talked a little bit about like what happens after. So we
Mhm.
talked a little bit about ownership. I think that confuses a lot of business owners. I know it confuses me sometimes.
Mhm.
How do you recommend like having that conversation? Whether it's, hey, you designed our website and now we need ongoing support, or what have you? Do you have something in place like for your firm that assists with that, or what do you recommend a business owner and advisor asks?
Um, I mean, I guess like specific to a website,
Hmm.
there's like what kind of maintenance does it need?
Hmm.
Who will be doing this? Like do you have to
Hmm.
pay for that ongoing maintenance?
Hmm.
And then also like security, that's part of
Hmm.
the maintenance, I guess, but finding out, just making sure you have like, a firewall in place or
Hmm.
two-factor authentication is a really big thing right now. But
Hmm.
like websites in particular, you want to make sure you're secure, especially with anything
Hmm.
financial related, right? You want to be super careful there. So just knowing what's going to happen, how it's going to be monitored,
Hmm.
um and then like updates, if you're a small
Hmm.
business, you're going to continually have updates in your structure or your
Hmm.
pricing or your anything really.
Hmm.
So just knowing how to update things, so whether that's learning how to do it yourself, like maybe someone can teach you, like, oh, you just go in here and click this to change the text,
Hmm.
something simple like that. Or what, like knowing who to reach out to, like that point of contact for
Hmm.
anything small that needs to be changed, just making sure
Hmm.
what's going to happen there. And all
Yeah.
that really should be in the contract, or in the
Mhm.
proposal. Um, Usually, just because it's pretty standard, like it's gotta be addressed. So,
Mhm.
if especially like the ownership piece, like that would definitely be in
Mhm.
the contract. So that's a good place to start, but definitely asking the questions is
Okay,
helpful. Yeah.
good. No, I think that's good to know, and I think, like I said, a lot of advisors are not sure 'cause, again, I'm guilty of this too. So, like, you finish a design project and, like, you're like, "Okay, great, check it off my list," and, like, keep
Mhm.
moving, and then next year, to your point, it's like, "Oh, we have to update pricing. I need a landing page." I like and just you miss little things or you can't anticipate the needs of your business 10 years down the line. It's just not possible.
Mhm.
Like, I've been doing this since 2016. I think our website has had 4 iterations, and, like, we still make tweaks all the time. So, like,
Yeah.
it is what it is. Like,
But that's a good
it
thing, because if your website keeps changing, people kind of assume that things are happening with your
Mhm.
business. So I
Mhm.
think it's weird, it's like an impression thing, but
Yes.
I think
Mhm.
it's helpful, because if you're updating stuff, like, things
Mhm.
must be happening, and that's a good
Yeah.
kind of impression to make, so
No, I would agree, and I think it shows growth, right? So, like,
Mhm,
even if you're not
exactly.
growing even if for an advisor, even if you plan to be a solo advisor for the rest of your career, like, making website updates, investing in your marketing, growing your business that way, investing in client relationships, whatever it is, like,
Mhm.
shows that you're growing professionally and that, like, you're caring about the growth of your firm, and I think that
Yeah,
speaks volumes to, like, how much you care about clientele, which,
exactly.
again, just nurtures client relationships, increases prospects, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
Okay, cool. So we had also kind of talked about like prioritizing like design projects. So, and this might be part of your process as well. I get this question a lot from advisors. So
Mhm.
this was like a couple different clients asked me this. So
O
um,
okay.
an advisor, let's say, like they know they need, and I can actually just use myself for example. So,
Yeah.
like I know coming up in the next 6 months, we're going to need like 1 to 2 landing pages, a couple of PDFs that need to be redesigned, some collateral for like some events that we're doing in 2022, which is crazy
Mhm.
that people are already booking for 2022, but a lot of advisors are in the same boat.
Mhm.
How do you recommend people prioritize that? Is it just like when they need them? Is it, hey, let's get your website done first because we are in a digital era? Like, if they have
Mhm.
to spend marketing dollars, where should they focus those?
Got it. That's a tricky
I know it's
one.
probably a big question, but, like, for you
Yeah,
personally,
no,
what is
I
your
okay,
advice?
so I get clients, from all over the spectrum on this
Mhm.
actually, like, people call me and are like, "I need something tomorrow,"
Mm,
or, like, some people call me and be like, "I'm thinking about doing this thing in about 6 months, like, what do you think?" You know? So
mhm,
I really get the spectrum, and I get that's just kinda how it goes, right? Things
mhm,
happen that you need, so,
mhm.
you have to get it done. I mean, the first step would be maybe just reaching out to see how long something would take and how much it would
Okay.
cost. That way you can objectively decide like, X dollars goes to where. You have like a solid number to work with that to
Mhm.
compare. So that's a good place to start. Um, I mean, I would just say go in the order of like what's needed, more
Okay. Mhm,
urgently. But just checking in with the designer first might be helpful because some stuff takes longer
mm,
than you think.
mhm.
For example, like logo takes longer than, some simple postcard, right? But
Yes. Mhm,
um so yeah, checking in and getting like a general time frame and a
mhm,
budget. Once you have those, I think you can kind of, be like, oh, that's a lot of money. I'm gonna hold off on that one, but this one's,
mhm,
doable and it's in a short
mhm.
time span. I'm gonna do this, and that'll help you kind of
Mhm.
prioritize which one can
That
come
makes
first.
sense. Yeah, the one
Yeah.
thing that we always tell people too, and we're not designers, but, like, we know clients who say, "I have 10 pieces of collateral I want done, but next year I wanna redo my whole brand." And I'm like, "Well, maybe
Oof.
don't do the collateral yet. Like, if you need to redo your brand, maybe we reverse those. Like, let's redo the brand first, so that way your collateral has, like, some more mileage on it, like, you can get more
Yeah.
mileage
Yeah, I would
out of it."
definitely say, branding, like, people I get, like, you start where you can with a budget, right? You just
Of
get
course.
get
Mhm,
going, but, it's really important because, um, to change it later is, like, it kind of your clients might go, like, "Well, why is everything changing? Like, what?"
mhm,
It
mhm,
kinda gets, like, kinda weird to switch, it's tough to switch well, I guess, especially if you're
mhm,
changing everything
mhm.
around. So and then that being said, like, the website, I would say, is kind of the anchor of all your marketing,
Okay. Mhm,
website and logo, like, you really want those to be established and good before you jump
mhm,
into, like, 10 marketing
mhm,
projects because, people are always gonna go there first,
mhm,
and your website has all the, analytics, right? So it's gonna tell you all the
mhm.
information that you need, so having everything set up correctly and looking good
Okay.
there first, I think is
Mhm.
very key, and then you can kind of start, getting other
Building
stuff.
out.
Yeah,
Mhm.
which will probably direct them to your website eventually anyway, right? So,
Yes. Mhm.
so yeah, I
Mhm.
would say start there. Mhm.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's good to know. Well, the only other question that I kind of jotted down, and this is like a random one-off question, just about tools that people use. So someone
Mm,
had asked me before this, they had
yeah.
submitted earlier, like they didn't never know if they should work with a designer who does Adobe and like Photoshop or like
Mhm.
Canva so that they can update it later. Do you have like a recommendation or like what do you use personally?
So personally, I use Adobe.
Okay.
That's like the professional software, the
Hmm.
industry standard. Excuse me. So I've Canva has been like a huge up and comer kind of on the scene.
Hmm.
And I know people who will work in Canva, and like you said, it's kind of helpful if the client wants to go in and edit it later.
Hmm.
Um, the only thing with Canva is that like they do a good job of giving you a good amount of stuff, but, like,
Hmm.
somebody else could have the exact same thing as you.
Yes.
Like, it
Mhm.
definitely kind of, narrows it a bit as far as creativity,
Yeah,
although
they
it's
work a
it's
lot in, like,
easy.
templates, which is
Yeah,
again, there's I think
it's
a time
easy.
for that, but I just kinda wanted to check
Yeah.
what your opinion
So
was.
it depends on what you're looking for. Now, if
Mm,
you're short on time or resources, like they're great. But if you
mhm,
can spend the investment of kind of making your own stuff, I think
like
original
custom.
content is
Mhm,
always better.
mhm,
But it's it depends on what you need. Like, if you want to be
Mhm,
able to edit it yourself and that's really important to you, then
mhm,
Canva might be the better option instead of, Photoshop, where something where it's got a little
mhm.
bit more of a learning curve.
Sure. Yeah,
It's
no, that makes
tougher.
sense. And I think
Yeah.
too what you said there about, like, original content is always better is key because I think a lot of clients, like, when I talk to them, they don't necessarily see, like, design as content that they're releasing, but it totally
Mhm.
is. Like, your
Mhm.
website, like, that's just content. Like, design brochures, that's just another form of content that you're focusing on. Even though it's a more visual medium, it's still representative of your firm, your values, like, all of that good stuff that the
Mhm.
same type of work you would put into like a custom blog post like should probably be mirrored in like custom visual content in some form of design. So no, I'm with you there.
Yeah, you kinda get what you put in almost,
Mhm,
quick and simple is good, but maybe
mhm,
you get a little more out of something with more thought into it, a little bit more
mhm.
time. So, yeah, it depends again, but
Yeah. No, it's
but
that's always the answer with anything marketing, right?
they
It
both have
depends on
their place.
mhm,
But yeah, if you can really, the investment of working with someone to make something original, I think, it's a good thing to do.
sure, absolutely. Okay, well, we'll kind of open it up here. If anyone has any questions, you can feel free to drop them in the chat. Otherwise, kind of in the meantime, Amy, do you have anything else that you wanted to touch on?
No, I mean, this has been great. I think we touched on a lot of things.
Mhm.
Hopefully it was helpful.
Yeah. Mhm.
I know there's a lot of
I think
like,
it helped me even, so
oh
it's
yeah, oh
it's good.
good, good. That's what I want to hear. No. The industry is a little bit convoluted as far as like the different
Mhm,
levels of service and types of, service.
mhm.
So I get why there's questions and rightfully so. So
Yeah, no, for sure, and it looks like the chat's kinda quiet, so that's okay if people are feeling
okay.
shy, but what we'll do is we will release this through to anybody who registered, on a blog post, again, so that just the public can see and get answers, it's all that stuff. If someone wanted to connect with you directly, Amy, where should they go? Are you on social media, just through your website? What works best?
Yes. So email is probably the best way to reach me. It's Amy, AMY, at amplifybydesign.com. You can check out my website at amplifybydesign.com. You can reach out to Zoe for my contact info if you
Yeah, no, and
forget.
I've got all
Uh,
that. We'll add it to the email too.
oh, awesome. So yeah, like I said, the door is always open. I always love talking about this stuff. So if any other
Okay.
questions come up, feel free to reach out. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. This was exciting and I appreciate doing these. Like I had told you earlier, it's a lot more fun for me personally to do this with somebody else and to answer questions for people than just to like get up here by myself and chat. So
Well, thank you for inviting me. This is great experience and, great to do. So let me know if I
okay.
can do anything else.
Yeah, no, for sure. Awesome. Well, have a great rest of your day and thanks everyone for stopping by.
Cool. Thanks, Zoe. Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Take care.